Welcome to the StoryO 3 video series. Let's start by creating a new project. Start StoryO, and from the project screen, select the New Project button. Enter a name for your project, and then select the format. I'm going to select a novel, and then click OK. You will be asked to create a default timeline. For a novel, you can create a timeline with segments as chapters and sequences as chapter headings. I will leave the default setting here to create 6 chapters and 4 index cards per chapter. We can, of course, add more at any time. I will select the Auto Create Timeline button. Okay, let's see what we have. Down here, you will see the segments as chapters. Here on the timeline, each chapter or segment digs deeper into a sequence, which is on the next level. So if you select the More button, which is the 3 dots shown here, for Chapter 1, you will see 3 options. Let's edit the sequence. In this case, the sequence name, Chapter 1, has been named the same as the segment name. Let's modify the sequence name and call it Early Years. In the sequence description fields, I will enter a short description of this sequence. Prince John's birth and childhood. You can also enter a short note and a long description here. So notice that the sequence is now called Early Years, but it is still attached to the segment Chapter 1, signified here by the color. To verify that, edit the sequence again, and notice Chapter 1 here in this segment pop-down. Let's create another sequence, which is still part of Chapter 1. To do this, select the New Segment or Sequence button. We want to create a new sequence. Enter the name of the sequence here. I will call it Education Years, and attach it to segment Chapter 1. In the description, I will enter Prep School and Dating, and click Create. Now, notice that the new sequence was created on the timeline, but it placed it here at the end of the timeline. In my novel, I want this to directly follow the Early Years sequence. So let's drag it there. We now have 2 sequences attached to Chapter 1. Let's create one more called Marriage. Next, let's attach an index card or 2 to the first sequence. Select the More button, again the 3 dots, on the first sequence card, and select Manage Index Cards. By default, we have 4 index blank cards created for us. Let's say we only need 3 here, so let's delete the last card. Click Edit on that card, and then click on the trash can icon. Okay, now we can work with our 3 cards. Let's edit the first card. You can enter a title here and as much text as you want for this card. Just as you can drag and drop sequences on the timeline, you can drag and drop index cards to rearrange them. You can also change the color of an index card. Edit the card and select the Color button Then select a new color. If you ever want to change the color of the index cards in a single sequence back to the original segment color, select the Match to Segment Color button. Now that we know how to create segments, sequences, and index cards, let's take a look at some of the sample projects in StoryO. First, before we do, notice that you cannot see the project we just created, My Novel, in the project list. Scroll down a bit, and then you will see it. If you want to reorder the way in which your projects are viewed in this list, select the Sort button, and you can then drag and drop the projects in the order you want to view them. Okay, let's launch the time travel projects. This is a short story where the segments seen here are designated as periods of time as opposed to chapters or scenes. The color coding of the sequences shows you which segment each sequence is attached to. So, for example, the French Revolution has two sequences created: Welcome to 1779 and Freeing Buddy, even though they are not shown next to each other in the timeline. Notice how the segment Current Year has 5 sequences attached to it. To filter the display and show only the sequences for a particular segment, select the segment and then select the Filter button. You can now work with only this segment. To return to all segments, select the Show All button. Let's take a look at the Hamlet project. In this example, the segments are acts, and the sequences are scenes from the play Hamlet. Digging down to the index card level shows you the index cards for that sequence. At any time, you can print your project using one of StoryO's many report formats. If you want to export your project, select the Export option under the File menu to see all export options. That wraps up this lesson. To learn more about StoryO, please check out the other video lessons. And also, check out the iOS version of StoryO, available on the App Store.